We'll call to order the regular meeting for the Iredell County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, May 5th, 2015. If you'll bow for invocation. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here to do the people's business this evening. We ask that you illuminate our minds and guide our discussions so that we can achieve equitable and fair results that are beneficial to all. Lord, we ask that you watch over all the citizens of this county and our nation. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith, would you announce any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I have two adjustments. The first is going to be placed under administrative matters, and this would be item E, and it's labeled as Memo 6A. This was added to the consent agenda, but it was a request from solid waste, or from Iredell-Statesville Schools to solid waste to waive the tipping fees for Cool Springs Elementary. The second item is we will not have to go into closed session tonight, but there was action, as you know, from the closed session at the pre-agenda. So we won't be going into closed session, but there will be a motion needed under that item.
All right. Any comments regarding adjustments to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the adjustments to the agenda?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Vice Chairman Norman. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. There are no presentations or special recognitions this evening. There are also no appointments before the board. And we will proceed at this time into public hearing. I'll call into order a public hearing under item A, memo number 1, public hearing for the consideration of an economic development incentive for Project Decker. Mr. Smith?
Mr. Carney is here to make that request.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, thank you so much for giving me the time to come before you this evening. My name is Robert Carney, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Mooresville South Iredell Economic Development Corporation. I'm here tonight to present for your consideration Project Decker. Project Decker is an aerospace company that is working to engineer and design a fully composite aircraft with the long-term goal to make and manufacture aircraft for the commercial market. For this project, Mooresville and Iredell County had to compete against Austin, Texas, Bend, Oregon for potential locations. We are blessed that they have chosen Iredell County and Mooresville as their home and headquarters to grow this project. Although this project has multiple phases, the first phase entails the next 3 years. The company will invest over $6 million in new tax investment in facility and machinery and equipment purchases. The company also plans to hire 58 full-time engineers and machinists, paying wages well over $60,000 per worker. In accordance to the Iredell County Industrial Development Incentive Program, we are requesting incentive be granted to Project Decker for 80% of increased tax value to be paid back for a period of 5 years. Based on an incentive ranging between $3 and $6 million investment, that incentive equates to a maximum incentive amount between $58,000 and $116,400. Those incentives will be paid out in the next 5 years. These exact incentive amounts are adjusted to reflect exact new tax investment made by the company. And as always, the county is not obligated to make any incentive payments until the company has fulfilled all commitments and increased the county tax value by the promised amounts. On behalf of the Mooresville South Iredell Economic Development Corporation, I thank you again for allowing me to present this to you this evening, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Carney? It's like a great opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the. Public hearing. Wait. Public comment? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see, is there anyone that would like to be heard relative to this Project Decker approval? They're hearing none, and no one has signed up. Is there any discussion? No further discussion. I'll call this public hearing closed and ask if there is a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve an economic incentive ranging between $58,200 and $116,400 over a 5-year period based on the company's investment ranging between $3 million and $6 million and contingent upon a contract being executed within 180 days.
Motion by Commissioner Robertson. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Thank you, sir.
I'll now open a public hearing to consider a request from Tomlin Mill Family, LLC, to rezone 9.93 acres from residential agricultural to highway business.
Good evening to the
Mr.
board.
Todd?
Tonight we have a rezoning request before us. The property is outlined in blue on the screen near the interchange of Tomlin Mill Road and 77. The request is to rezone the property from RA to straight HB, highway business. Staff supports this request based on the close proximity to the highway interchange commercial designation on the 2030 Horizon Plan, and the property is in close proximity to other commercially zoned properties, and potential traffic impact should not exceed the road capacity. This is a map showing the 2030 Horizon Plan. It shows basically a corridor along Tomlin Mill Road. You've got the Lowe's Distribution Center to the east, and the property is outlined here in blue. You access it off Woodpecker Road. Here's an aerial of the property showing the back half is wooded, the front half is in a field. You can see a relatively new veterinary practice to the north. That's basically at the far end or the dead end of Woodpecker. And then you've got some ag type commercial uses here along with a gas station, and then some residential uses scattered throughout. This is a view looking at the subject property. This is looking north, so you got 77 running on the east side here. Here's the relatively new veterinary practice. Property's on our left. Looking back toward the interchange. Looking across the from the property at the interstate. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time from the board.
Are there any questions of Mr. Todd?
This did have a 7-1 vote from the planning board, with the concern of being some residential land or agricultural land being lost to the rezoning.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Todd. We do have one individual that's signed up to be heard for the public hearing on the Tomlin Mill Family LLC rezoning, Mr. John Lundy. Mr. Lundy, if you would approach the microphone, if you could state your name and address for the record.
I'm John Lundy. I live at 199 Court Lane.
Okay. Mr. Lundy, you'll have a 3-minute time allotment.
It'll be shorter than that. My property joins this property on that corner of Court Lane and the vet clinic. That's my property all the way to the creek down through there, and it's highway business. And I'm speaking on behalf of Malcolm Thompson. He's kind of an invalid, and he asked me to come and say something for him. I think it should be rezoned. That's all highway business in there anyway.
And Mr. Michael Thompson lives where?
Can you show him? Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Lundy. Are there any questions? Mr. Lundy? Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Is there anyone else in the audience that didn't sign up that's appearing to speak in this matter, wanting to be heard? Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing. And is there any further discussion, comments? Do we have a motion?
Yeah,
Go ahead, either way.
I'll make a motion to recommend in favor of the request and make a finding that though the request is inconsistent with the 2030 Horizon Plan, said approval is reasonable and in the public interest because it is consistent with previous rezoning requests in the area. The parcel is in close proximity to the interstate and the Tomlin Mill Road interchange, and traffic will not come close to capacity.
Motion by Commissioner Robertson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Now, open the final public hearing under subparagraph C, memo number 3, the public hearing to consider a request by Langtree Plantation South, LLC, to release jurisdiction to the town of Mooresville. Once again, Mr. Todd.
Okay. Again, on the screen with this request, it is a release of zoning and subdivision jurisdiction. The property is outlined in blue. It's approximately 13.36 acres on Langtree Road. It's adjacent to the Bridgeport subdivision, which is to the south. And then the Davidson campus, Lake campus, is across the road with some additional residential toward the end of Langtree and back up toward the interstate. This is an existing zoning map of the property. This is a map from the 2030 Horizon Plan showing the area is slated low-density residential. In the plan, that's basically 2 units per acre. And again, this is just a release to Mooresville's zoning and subdivision jurisdiction. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this one.
Are there any questions for Mr. Todd? We do have a number of people that have signed up to be heard. I'll just go down the list and call out your names, and if you could come up to the podium, announce your name and your address, and remember we have a 3-minute time limit to try to move through things. So, Mr. Steve Goodrich. I don't need to say that at this time. Okay. Is it Apata? Pete, okay. Legispundi.
Good evening. My name is Pete Legispundi. I live at 192 South Haven within the Bridgeport subdivision. The primary concern I, as well as my neighbors, have is the reasoning for the release to the town of Mooresville from Iredell County. The Bridgeport subdivision is within Iredell County. We are residents of Iredell County. We're not residents of the town of Mooresville. We have a concern as far as any changes to future planning, whether we would get the support out of the town of Mooresville that we believe we will get out of the county. One thing might be a matter of maybe lack of communication where we don't understand why we want to release it to the town of Mooresville.
We're not putting Bridgeport in there.
No, this is just the,
The concern really is about, right now it's zoned for, I believe, 2 houses per acre. Should our future zoning requests come up to change it more, we really feel that we would have a better audience with the county than the town.
I believe that Mr. Howard is here, and that at the conclusion of your remarks, he may be able to clarify from the developer's perspective, the applicant's perspective, the rationale for the town of Mooresville getting this piece of property in their ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, and subsequent potential annexation. So
Would there
concern
be a risk
noted, and we will address that.
Would there be a risk of annexation? Should we allow the zoning to move to the town of Mooresville?
No, not for Bridgeport.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Susie Phillips.
Hi, I am Susie Phillips, and I am from Kings Landing neighborhood. I live on Kings Crest, 155 Kings Crest. I represent my neighborhood. I'm on the board of the HOA Board of Directors, and there are about 60 houses in our neighborhood. And there are questions that we have about this. One that the gentleman just brought up about giving it over to Mooresville. We as voters in Iredell County, not Mooresville, have no say-so over what Mooresville does right next door to us. So we don't vote for these guys. We don't have any say-so in any part of what they do. So they could do whatever and not worry about getting our votes, which I think is not the way to go. I think that as a neighbor, it's putting too many houses on that property. Y'all, as Iredell County has stated, there's a certain number of houses that need to go on there because of watershed issues. I'm not an engineer. I don't know nothing about nothing other than I don't think it's good to put 9 more houses on that property when it's already been sold on getting less houses. If there are 9 more houses put on that property, who does that help but Rick? It puts money in his pocket. Not to point Rick out, but that's just the idea here. It's a money thing. I had conversation with Rick, and we have gone back and forth a little bit, and I don't mean to degrade him in any way. I'm just making a statement that I don't think that it's good to say that you're going to do one thing and do another thing. And he said to me the other night that if his houses don't get approved for that, there's a school down in Charlotte that wants to develop on that property. Well, wow, it's all residential. How can I just get confused with all this, and I just don't think it's the way that our little peninsula needs to get developed. We already have a school across the street with Davidson College. They have all that property. They can do whatever they want with that property. But it needs to be a development, and it needs to be a small development as the city, as the county has said in our mind. I'm wondering if there's anybody from Mooresville City that is here to represent Mooresville, if they want it.
Mr. Chairman, could I address one issue right there? When you said you didn't have any representation if it were to go to the Mooresville ETJ, I believe this board approves 2 positions on that ETJ that sits on their planning board.
Okay.
Which what it is, those 2 positions have to be a person that resides in the ETJ to be eligible to sit on there. So you do have a little bit of a voice there in the planning stages of that.
Right.
Now, it is only 2 persons. Am I correct on that, Mr. Todd? Is that still the way it is, that there's 2 people on there that this board actually appoints to that Mooresville Planning Board? So you do have somewhat of a due process there.
Right.
Yes.
But we don't vote on them, so we don't have any say, really. I mean,
As far as the town board members, that's correct. But when you vote for someone on this board, you actually have some say with those 2 persons.
Right.
And I'd like to address something that Mr. Pete said a while ago about would it cause annexation? The piece of legislation that's before us this evening, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Todd, but it would not help or hurt annexation. I mean, it's really not an issue of whether we're not starting the process of annexation. Mooresville could annex that piece of property or the other piece of property in their normal annexation process that we have no control over.
And I've had a conversation with, may I continue? My time
Yes,
is
you
up.
can, since this colloquy has been engaged in, certainly.
I've had a conversation with, and I can't remember his name, the ShopRite owner for Mooresville City, that I don't think they want to take over more property because it's not financially, they end up losing money on certain things. I don't think they'll lose money on this, I'm sure, but, it's just, it's something that we don't want as a neighborhood. And I'll leave it at that. If anybody has any questions.
Any further questions? Ms. Phillips? Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you.
The next person signed up is Mr. Curtis Guys.
Good evening. My name is Curtis Guys, and I live right behind the subject property. Right in the middle of my backyard is right on that property. I look right at it every day. So I have a stake in this. The first thing I want to say is I'm speaking for myself personally, and none of my neighbors that live in Bridgeport. I know that some of them are opposed to this, so I'm only speaking for myself. But I have sold real estate. I have a degree in real estate. I'm familiar with a lot of these things. And ever since I've lived on that property, I have thought, what's going to happen to that property? And I know that when I moved there that I'm taking a risk that what would happen to that property. Now, the very best thing that I could imagine to happen to that property is what Mr. Howard is proposing, and that is to have 2 units per acre. Now, Mr. Howard is not paying me. But the point is I don't believe that we should be trying to necessarily stop developers from developing property and stop. I think that that's what most of the properties are for, and that's what should happen, will happen, and whatever. What I'm concerned about is if he does not build 26 homes on that property, what will be built on that property, which has already been brought up by someone else. So I've seen his survey, and 2 units per acre with a road going down with a cul-de-sac, and he's proposed to build very nice homes, and I'm all in favor of that, because what else could be better than that? Now, as far as the units per acre, I live on a 1/4 acre behind that property in Bridgeport. Many of the people in Bridgeport live on 1/2 acres or more, but in my little area behind that, I live on a 1/4 of an acre. And so he's, right in within his limits there. He's fine with that. But I'm in favor of it. The only thing I'm going to ask Mr. Howard is if we switch this over to Mooresville, how do we get guaranteed that that is what you're going to do? I've seen your survey. I've seen if that's what you're going to do with the cul-de-sac road going in there in 26 homes, I'm all for it. But I would like to know why you're switching over to Mooresville, and can you give us some kind of a guarantee that it's not going to go to Mooresville and then they're going to build condominiums or something? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Guys. Finally, Beverly Guys. Okay, nothing further. Okay, at this point, there have been a couple of questions raised. Perhaps we could clear those up, just as a matter of process and what ETJ involves and annexation. Mr. Todd, could you just, in general, outline what the town of Mooresville can and can't do and is wanting to do, and their position on this particular request?
Sure. Mooresville, really, they're not the ones looking for this request. The applicant is the one that's looking for this request. In order to build the development that he wants to build, one, I think there's plans to do curb and gutter. You can't do curb and gutter in the county. So, he's going to be able to build the high-end subdivision that he wants under Mooresville's jurisdiction. Under ours, he would have to kind of change his road plan and build more of a standard county subdivision with your just your cut and fill on the sides of your road. But again, going into Mooresville, it does allow them roughly the 9 additional lots. Depending on exactly how that road's laid out, that's just a rough number from our calculations. And I know Mr. Howard has a plan here that he'd be glad to pass around, I'm sure, if you'd like to see it. But for this property, Mooresville's not providing water and sewer to it. My understanding, all that's going to be coming through your private companies down there. So it all boils down to being able to build the type of development that he's wanting to build, which the county, because of some watershed restrictions, the curb and gutter issue, it's just not allowed. Going into Mooresville, he's going to face higher restrictions on some watershed issues. Sure, he's able to go lower in lot size, but he's going to face a whole other set of requirements from a stormwater perspective that he wouldn't face if he was with the counties under the county code. So, again, you've got that shift, too, that would take place if he goes into Mooresville's jurisdiction. And, again, that's just higher standards for the stormwater requirements. And, again, the ETJ, this is just zoning and subdivision jurisdiction, has nothing to do with corporate limits. Granted, he could turn around and ask for the city to annex his parcel, but involuntary annexation is nearly impossible under the current state statutes. It's there, but the hoops that you'd have to go through to do it are ridiculous. So, I don't think that's a realistic fear for the adjacent property owners to worry about Mooresville coming out there and involuntarily annex them. It would be only voluntary annexation.
And was there a public meeting held where neighbors had an opportunity to get fully acquainted with the plan and the rationale?
Yes, on January 12th, there was a public hearing held by the Howards to review their proposed development, as this board had instructed them to do.
Suppose that Mr. Howard decides that he does not want to do residential development and he does want to do a school development. Is school permitted by right in the county zoning like it is now?
Schools in RA would be permitted by right. There's going to be some requirements they would have to meet. So I don't know that they'd meet all those requirements, but they are permitted by right in RA zoning.
So what that calculates out to is he needs staff approval, but would not need planning board approval or county commissioner board approval.
Correct.
Any further questions, Mr. Todd?
To address one other thing that came up, the assurance that if this goes into the ETJ, there's no way to give that 100% assurance. All I could say, though, is that the county plan and the Mooresville land use plan calls for the area to stay low-density residential. Can that change? Certainly so. But there's it would make that process to try to do something more than single-family on that property, it would make it a little more difficult. But again, there's no way to assure them that would not happen.
Does the addition of the 9 extra building lots that would be permitted through Mooresville's zoning ordinance, would that constitute a medium density or a high density for that?
It's going to drop them to half-acre lot sizes, which actually, under our land use plan, is considered low density.
Okay,
So it
it's
actually matches.
still consistent.
It still matches our plan.
Any additional questions or comments? Yes. Yes, you can come up.
My name is Sarah Green, and I live on Knoxview Lane, which is the one right up against Bridgeport. It's kind of a horseshoe shape. And I just had a question, and I apologize. I have not been to any of the other hearings, and I was unable to come to the public meeting. And I'm sure Mr. Howard will probably share with us. But I was just interested in how you could get 13 half-acre lots together with a road and curbing when the lots, I think that the whole area is only 13.36 acres or 13.63, I'm not sure what it was. So that was just one thought that I had, but I'm sure Mr. Howard will address that. Because then technically you couldn't really have 2 per acre if you needed to take some of that acreage for road. I would also just agree with the gentleman from Bridgeport who said that I am not opposed to having development there. I think it would be good. It's a bit of an eyesore now as you drive down the road. My only concern would be that it would be nice homes on decent-sized lots. I definitely would not like a school in that area. Davidson campus, it may be a school, but it has pretty much zero impact on us because it's used mainly for camps, etc. So that has no impact. But we already do have a school. If you go down Alcove Road, which is not far from where we are, so you would go to the traffic circle down Alcove, we do already have a school there. If you continue going all the way down Langtree Road, we're at T-junctions with Route 115, we have Pine Lake Prep. So we have a school there. We have an abundance of schools in the area, some excellent schools. So I don't think there would be a necessity for another school in the area. And I would definitely be opposed to that because I think that traffic on Langtree would not be able to support all that traffic. It's a single lane going both ways. We have a traffic circle which already throws a lot of people into confusion. I think that it would add to that. And we also have the development is not quite finished along that I-77 where the original Langtree at the lake, I'm not quite sure what the development's called now, where you've got the apartments being built. And when that all comes to fruition, that's going to add a substantial amount of traffic. Many times I need to take my son to Aqua Fitness on a Wednesday, and I'm already stuck coming down Langtree Road. There's no way for me to get around the traffic circle to be able to turn left up Alcove. So traffic already is a problem in that area, in my opinion. As soon as you have any traffic jams on I-77, people get off I-77 and they're coming across that. And so around the traffic circle, people are actually almost like stuck in the traffic circle because of people coming across. So I'm not opposed at all to a development as long as it is low density as is promised. A school I would be completely opposed to.
Well, thank you, Ms. Green. Could you give me your address again?
Sure. I'm 143 Knoxview Lane.
Knoxview.
And Knoxview, it's the, as you see where the development is, the backs of of some of our homeowners actually back up onto Bridgeport. And the one right on the corner that backs up against the blue, that one is not part of our community, but I'm on that street on the left-hand side.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to afford...
I have a question. With regards to Rick, will there be questions after that we could ask Rick about his presentation?
Yes, certainly. I wanted to afford Rick or Brad the opportunity, the Howards, to share a little bit about their proposal, their project, and the rationale, and then be able to respond to questions as they have before us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. This has been kind of a confusing process, and I apologize for it. We got off on the wrong foot. We had the meetings, and I think that helped a lot. But what we're really looking for, if you go back to the very basics, is the county does not have the proper zoning in place to utilize water, sewer, curb, and guttering. That's not a bad thing. It's just it doesn't because it's not in that business. Mooresville has that policy in place. We do not want to change the zoning, but the real reason, if you look at the property, we have right across the street another major investment, multi-million-dollar investment. And with that sitting across the street from us, like the gentleman back here, we were very much concerned in what could go there. As we all know, there's a lot of things could go there. So when I bought the property, I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I wanted to protect our investments for us at the plantation as well as other people. And then we looked at what's the best use and what is the market want. And there's a big demand right now for homes in the $500,000 to $650,000 range. So we said that would be a great opportunity. We went out and did our homework on that. Two or three of the major home builders in the area all are right now under LOIs. We haven't signed anything because we don't know if we can do it yet or not. But they're not going to be building $600,000 homes with a culvert and a ditch in front of them. They're just not going to do that. So this is the reason we looked at the avenues of what we could do when we felt that Mooresville zoning allowed 2 per acre in the critical watershed if you have water and sewer. So we secured water and sewer rights through Aqua about 6 or 8 months ago. So the property will be served by water and sewer. If we were only to go in right now by right and put 19 homes in there, it would be well and septic. And I think that would be the last thing that I would want, or even any of the adjoining people or Bridgeport or the whole peninsula, is to go in there and put in 16, 18, 19 septic systems. I'm not going to do that. That's the wrong thing for the area. So I think that's really the nuts and the bolts of it is Mooresville has policy in place in zoning that allow for 2 per acre if you have water and sewer. The county doesn't. And that's the reason if we put one road in, curb, gutter, do it right, then we can put homes in at a value that's going to bring the value of everybody's property around there up, including us, across the street. And that's what we want. We want to bring the values up. Something's going to go there. And if I don't do it and somebody else, I'm not going over there and build a school, okay? If that happens, the sign will go up, it'll be for sale, somebody else will buy it, and that'll happen. I'm not going to want that. That would hurt the value of our property, and also yours and everybody else. It's not going to happen under my watch. So I'll make that. And we're not going to build anything more than 2 per acre. And I'll be glad to do this conditional upon 2 per acre. You know, there's 13 acres, and divide that, you know, it's 26 and a third home. But we're looking at 26. We want to build very nice homes. We think it'll add a lot to the tax base for the county. It'll protect the value of our property and surrounding people without having any major impact on any traffic of what could be. So, I mean, I hope I've hit all the points and it's understood what we're doing. It's not about changing zoning. It's not about going into the city of Mooresville. And with Aqua servicing water and sewer, before it could ever go into the city, if we wanted it to, and we don't, and they understand that, they would have to buy the utility company, the water and sewer, before they could do that. And they're not going to do that, to my knowledge. They'd have to buy Bridgeport and all the rest down the peninsula. So I'll be glad to try to answer any questions on which
If they were to annex you, then you would have to.
Oh, if Mooresville was to annex, it's my understanding, Matt, you might have to help me, they typically would have to buy the water and the sewer system also to go along with it, which services all of Langtree. It's Knoxview all the way down all those different areas. They're not going to do that.
They don't want.
Okay. If you please state your name.
Thank you.
Would you state your name again so we can make sure we got that? Mr. Howard, I have just a couple questions. I think a lot of the concerns that were raised by neighbors early on in this process had to do with the stated plan and the potential for a change down the road. So is this property contemplated for sale to any third party?
Right now, we're developing it. We'll be building the roads, the water, the sewer, and the lots. We will sell those lots probably to one developer right now. We have 3 that are interested. We have one that we believe is best for everyone. And, they're to the point we have LOIs going to contracts, but there's no need in doing it until we know we can do it. But Mooresville, as you say, in the overlay, they're not, if they took over the whole peninsula, it's 2 per acre. That's not going to change, in my opinion, because it's in all the overlays. The high density will be out toward the interstate where it is today. And there's a lot more of that to come, so hang on.
So your plan then is to retain ownership until you've put in the road, the curb, the guttering,
right,
water,
and we will actually be selling the homes also.
And then selling the entire project to a third-party developer, or giving them a developer rights?
Lots. There'll be takedowns of lots, and probably be one developer. And right now, the projected timeline from start to finish is about 24 months. They believe that the market will support selling 26 homes a little over, 1 a month.
And if action was taken this evening, what timeline would Mooresville be looking at that you would project in terms of their acting on ETJ? And
well, to my knowledge, they've already sent a letter to the county 6 months ago, maybe. We're not asking for rezoning. They'll take it at R2, 2 per acre. We don't want it rezoned. So it will stay at the same zoning, and that should take probably no more than 30 days. We'll have to go in, and it'll go from the county R2 to the city R2, or what? R20 to R2, 2 per acre. If this property were anywhere else in the county a mile away, it's 2 per acre. The reason this is required is the critical watershed and water and sewer. The density's not, it's the lowest density, 2 per acre. We don't want that changed. I don't ever want that changed there. There's no condominiums or anything, or apartments or duplexes, these are single-family homes, and they should start somewhere in the $500,000 to $600,000 range. Quality homes.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question for Rick. The document that just got circulated here looks like there's a retention pond on it.
Yeah. Mooresville will require that.
Okay. Who will own it and who will maintain it?
That will be part of the project.
Okay. If you sell all of the lots off to a particular tract builder, does the homeowners association, will there be a homeowners association that is responsible for the maintenance of that?
Yes.
Are there any further comments from the public? Yes, sir.
My question, Mr. Howard, is how does this affect the sewer system and the water system in the Bridgeport neighborhood with you tapping into it?
I think maybe is there a capacity
right
issue?
now, we went to Aqua. There's adequate capacity there, and actually we have capacity for up to 60 homes. We will not use but 26 of them, and there's no other land really right now available to use the other right now. But I'm being told there's lots of water. I mean, they have a lot of capacity for water because it's tied into the big tank down at 33 plus the wells, but we have bought the capacity, we own the capacity, and there should be, to my knowledge, plenty there. It's Aqua of North Carolina. They pretty much supply all the water up and down Langtree Road and all the way to Alexander Island up to where the Langtree development is today, Langtree. There are actually 3 wells there, I believe 3. There's actually one of the biggest wells that supports Bridgeport is at Langtree Plantation, right there on the kind of on the corner of Yeoman and Langtree. That's the single largest well that supports it.
Is the plan still to piggyback the sewer system onto Bridgeport sewer system?
Yes.
At Portland, coming into the neighborhood?
Coming in through Cortland. We would prefer to go the other direction.
Is that going to have to be pumped from your neighborhood into this thing?
Yeah. There'll be a four.
Engineers have looked at this and they've stated that our system can handle.
Up to, I believe it's up to 60 homes at the capacity, but we don't intend on using more than 26 to 30, half of it.
We have a pump station that's in our neighborhood that this will be piggybacked onto also. I didn't know if there
No, it'll gravity. There'll be a new pump station that will force main into one of the mains that will gravity into.
into Bridgeport, but when you get into Bridgeport, if you know Bridgeport, gravity's down to a pump station by the tennis courts, which pumps all of Bridgeport out of our neighborhood to
Right. These questions are, above my pay grade, but what we bought from Aqua was capacity for up to I think 56 to 60 homes, single family homes.
Last time I talked to the guy from DOT, I don't have his name with me, he said that Aqua was still looking at the application and had not approved.
No, they've approved it. The checks cleared the bank 6-8 months ago.
Their engineers approved the plan. I don't have any more questions.
Okay, but we'll need to be closing things down in a few moments. Last question.
Anybody else have questions before we move on? Just briefly on
Set up over here.
When you said that developers, once you sold it, is there anything stopping the developer from changing it? Or once you sell it, then they develop what you plan? Is that not anywhere? They couldn't change it.
We own the lots. We right now are in the approval process of the plans that we want them to build in there. We are the marketing firm that will be selling those, and right now it looks like we will sell to probably one builder. It'll be consistent. It'll consistent, because if you don't do that, this property's too valuable, the location's too valuable, and we need to make sure we get it right.
Okay. Ms. Phillips?
That's a count.
Bridgeport's a completely different, I'll say, animal with the water and sewers available, but also you're talking about different years. I mean, our ordinance, I believe in 2011, would have changed to become more restrictive in the watershed areas. We played around with our lot size, increasing those, and honestly, before we always accommodated a developer that was going to have water and sewer. We allowed them to drop the lot size, and with the new code, that section for this particular watershed didn't make it in there. So I think, it's hard to look back and say what was allowed before we've got it. But it's just different regulations coming into play over the last, well, you've had lake zoning since 1984, so there's been different regulations since then. Oh, yes, there's been, curb and gutter would have been allowed at different times since 1984. But it's not allowed in the county's jurisdiction. In that area with the watershed, it's not allowed.
And why would that be?
The watershed rules have changed tremendously since Bridgeport was built.
Right. The watershed, a lot of those rules do come from the state, but, a lot of them come from the county's capacity as far as dealing with stormwater issues. Mooresville, they have engineers on staff that are going to review plans, review stormwater plans. The county doesn't. So if you're gonna allow the curb and gutter in watershed areas, you're gonna have to get into the stormwater business. The county's not in the stormwater business. Mooresville is, so therefore they allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Howard from the commission, any comments? I'll declare the public hearing over, concluded. Is there a motion in this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion that we grant the request for release of zoning and subdivision jurisdiction of the 13.36 acres on Langtree Road to the town of Mooresville. This evening, they have convinced me that it is consistent with the low-density option, and the stormwater will be handled properly. And that was one of my reservations before. But I'd make the motion that we approve this request this evening.
Motion made by Commissioner Bowles. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. I want to thank everyone for their participation this evening and sharing your concerns and the responses. And I think that, as has been articulated, this is the highest and best use for this particular piece of property and will serve to improve property values and not overly burden an already a crowded area beyond what could have been built anyway. And for the reasons stated by Commissioner Bowles relative to the stormwater issues and the fact that the properties that will be going in based on their tax values will actually pay for the services consumed by an average family occupying those dwellings. So thank you for your attendance this evening. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Call session back into order. At this time, Mr. Smith, if you could summarize the administrative matters that have been agreed to be on a consent agenda.
Yes, sir. The first item is a request from the Public Library to approve a 4-year contract with OverDrive, Inc. to provide e-books. And I will note that this is at an extremely discounted rate as compared to our last contract. B, request from Iredell-Statesville Schools to approve 2 lottery applications and budget amendment number 27. And just for clarification, the first application is for $216,021 for its payment in July 2013 towards the purchase of 85 acres of land. And the second application is to reimburse them $80,717 for its purchase of 9.9 acres to expand Cool Springs campus. Item C is a request from the Public Safety Department to approve Budget Amendment 28 for Stony Point Volunteer Fire Department to purchase a used fire engine for $30,000. D is a request for approval of the April 21st, 2015 minutes. And E is a request from Iredell-Statesville Schools through the Solid Waste Department for the waiving of tipping fees for the Cool Springs Elementary project.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there any further discussion on those consent items? Being none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Move on to item 9, an announcement of vacancy occurring on a board and commission. We have one announcement, the Troutman Board of Adjustment. Is there a motion that we publish this announcement?
So move.
Motion by Vice Chairman Norman. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 10, appointments to boards and commissions. There is a recommended appointment of Heather Griffin to the Eye Care Board of Directors to succeed Robert H. Gorley, Jr., who is going off of the board. Is there any discussion on this item? Is there a motion?
Motion to appoint Heather Griffin.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 11, unfinished business. Which is, here. There we go. This is request to adopt a resolution in opposition of Senate Bill 369 that seeks to revise the structure and distribution of sales tax. This arose out of a discussion and a motion by Commissioner Johnson during last session's meeting, and a resolution has been duly prepared and reviewed. And Mr. Johnson, would you like to read the resolution into the record?
Yeah, I'll read it. Resolutions of Iredell County adopted by the Board of Commissioners, whereas Senators Harry Brown, Brent Jackson, and Ben Clark have filed and sponsored Senate Bill 369, titled "A Bill to be entitled an Act to phase in the conversion of local sales and use taxes authorized under Articles 39, 40, and 42 to a state sales and use tax that is allocated to the counties and cities on a per capita basis as a local revenue source." Senate Bill 369, and whereas Senate Bill 369 seeks to revise Chapter 105 of the North Carolina General Statutes in a manner that would drastically alter the statutory structure of the collection and distribution of sales tax generated by local governments throughout the state of North Carolina. And whereas since enactment, sales tax in North Carolina have been a primary funding source for the municipalities and counties of the state and considered the property of those local governments who provide the resources and infrastructure to generate the sales taxes. And whereas historically, sales taxes have been distributed on a point-of-sale basis due in large part to the fairness of the concept that those who pay for the infrastructure and support it, sales taxes should be entitled to collect the tax spawned by their investment. And whereas Senate Bill 369 has the stated purpose of taking revenues from the place where they were generated and redistributing it to counties and municipalities that are less prosperous areas, whereas in doing so, the legislation seeks to provide a windfall to local governments who have not provided the resources and infrastructure necessary to generate significant sales taxes for their local community by taking it from the local governments whose communities and budgets bear the physical brunt of the cost of development. In effect, the legislation proposes to socialize sales tax revenues and distribute them under the guise of fairness and political correctness. And whereas the taking of an asset statutorily vested in the local governments of North Carolina and redistributed on the basis of currently perceived fairness will be financially devastating to Iredell County and its towns, as well as the majority of counties and municipalities in the state, forcing them to make up the difference by increasing ad valorem taxes. Gifting the sales tax revenues on a per capita distribution is tantamount to a tax increase mandated by the legislature. And whereas this legislation not only proposes to strip local governments of the statutorily vested funding source and mandate it recover those revenues elsewhere, it proposes to further effectively increase county set-aside requirements for public schools, capital outlays. And whereas despite the text of Senate Bill 369 stating the government may not reduce or withhold the distribution to local governments, this legislation will convert the local sales tax to a state sales tax, funneling it into the state's general fund, which threatens future distributions to local governments, just as has occurred with lottery proceeds as well as the beer and wine taxes. And whereas ultimately, this conversion of local sales tax to a state sales tax under the guise of fairness is in effect unfair and a fundamental change in the way government is financed in North Carolina. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Iredell County Board of Commissioners that the passing of Senate Bill 369 threatens to take over $500,000 in sales tax revenues from Iredell County annually, that the proposed legislation is far from fair, but rather it burdens the cities of Iredell County and its municipalities, that the Iredell County Board of Commissioners adamantly opposes Senate Bill 369 and any similar legislation that threatens the status and distribution of local sales and use taxes. It is hereby requested that the local delegation of the North Carolina General Assembly, elected to represent the interests of the cities of Iredell County and its municipalities, vigorously oppose Senate Bill 369 and any similar bill filed in the House. The Commissioners shall seek the support of the municipalities of Davidson, Harmony, Love Valley, Mooresville, Statesville, and Troutman, who all stand to lose local sales tax revenues by the passing of this legislation, to join in this legislation and adopt similar resolutions.
Now you can take a drink now.
Thank you, sir.
Can you read that again, please?
All right.
I believe there were a couple of friendly amendments that were offered in the other. And I apologize, I did not note those earlier.
I believe those were to add to distribute, redistribute, and to eliminate the phrase "and political correctness," and otherwise adopt the resolution as written. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. I want to thank our legal staff and staff for researching the issues and preparing such a well-crafted, cogent, and compelling argument, which I think ought to be persuasive to our legislators if they are focused on the substance of legislation. Under unfinished business, just a report, we did send a letter to our legislative delegation in the House and the Senate regarding the concern over a unfunded mandate of an additional primary during the presidential primary without associated compensation, and the concern that we have over the undue burden and stress that it places on our electoral system relative to volunteers who are kind enough to perform a civic duty in support of our electoral process. And that letter has been forwarded earlier this week. There is no public comment period this evening. New business. We have Mr. Smith, if you'll review the overlay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a request from the town of Mooresville to take a look at a overlay that will be placed on the Cornelius Road corridor that would limit the size of residential development to 1 unit per acre. Initially, this will only have an impact on jurisdiction that is within the town limits or within their ETJ. They are proposing to bring that overlay out all the way from basically from the new connector road out past I-77 to close to Judas Lane or Judas Road on the west side of I-77. The areas outside, again, of their jurisdiction will not be affected until annexed or brought into the town's jurisdiction. And all the town was looking for was an acknowledgement from the board that you all know about this, because they do plan to take action at their next meeting, which would be 2 weeks from yesterday.
Is there any comment concerning this matter? I don't believe there's any action that needs to be taken other than acknowledging receipt and review and appreciation for their sharing their thought process as we move forward in terms of developing this connector and the economic development in the future that will no doubt grow up along that Cornelius Road, Mazeppa Road, leading hopefully to an interchange at Cornelius Road and Interstate 77. So this has been a good process of collaboration and coordination from the get-go, and we continue to be committed to working with the town of Mooresville in terms of realizing our shared objectives. Mr. Smith, your report as county manager.
Tonight I'd like to take the time and then some that I usually take for my report and go through the budget message for FY16. We've been working on the budget, as have you, through your input and 2 planning sessions for about 5 months now in earnest. And this is the culmination of a large number of people's work and dedication over the last 5 months. The budget message this year is a little longer than it's been, as the budget took shape and was a little more complicated than what we thought it might be, or certainly I thought it might be. There are more moving parts. We've had some large projects that have taken place or that have been planned over the last year, several of which will come to fruition in this coming year, or begin to come to fruition. So there's a little bit more to be said, so I'll go ahead and jump right into my message. Again, I apologize for the length, but I feel like this tells the story and builds into how we got to where we're at through this budget process. In this year of revaluation, I found the results to be a good indicator of where we are overall as a county. Mooresville and South Iredell have generally seen a resurgence in development and are experiencing the associated increases in property values. Statesville and North Iredell continue to see slow to no development with very little overall growth in the tax base. Although our 1.63% increase in overall county tax base is less than stellar, we fared better than many NC counties whose reappraised valuations decreased. The end result is development in South Iredell is continuing to buoy the rest of the county and keep our overall growth steady. And I will note, Beth is going to go through with some graphs. I meant to say that up front. Even through the recession, Iredell County continued to grow at a fairly high rate. The steady growth identifies an important point. With new people comes an increase in the need for county services. From 2000 to 2015, Iredell County grew by 45,000 people. Between 2000 and 2007, assuming 2007 was the beginning of the recession, the county grew by 27,000. Since that time, we have seen an increase of over 18,000 people. This shows that although the rate slowed with the economy, it is not slowed by a significant amount. We have transitioned over the last 15 years from a smaller but growing, mainly rural county to a larger and still growing urbanizing county. According to the NC Office of State Budget and Management, Iredell is the 15th largest county in the state. We are firmly within the second tier of larger counties, with the first tier including the likes of Mecklenburg, Guilford, Forsyth, and Wake. This growth and transition is having an effect on the county's infrastructure and demands for services, and with what I consider personally to be conservative projections showing that Iredell will grow by another 10,000 people in the next 5 years, those impacts are going to continue. Development activity in the southern end continues to flourish. Building permit activity has continued to grow over the last 4 years. Graph 2 on the screen shows the yearly increases in the number of permits since 2010. The majority of this construction is residential and occurs in the Mooresville area. Commercial and industrial development has also been on the upswing. As Mooresville continues to expand its utility infrastructure, the county will continue to benefit from strong development activity. However, with growth comes more demand for public services. The two economic development corporations continue to be successful, adding 880 net new jobs in calendar year 2014 with an investment of over $54 million. Although the job creation is good news, we continue to see sporadic industrial closings, which take away from the overall impact of the new job creation. However, through it all, job growth has been positive and the unemployment rate has continued to drop. This development has contributed to the passage of $131,500,000 in school construction bonds in 2014. The corresponding tax increase to service this debt will be associated with the fiscal year 2016 budget. The tax rate will increase by 4.25 cents this year, with no additional increases over subsequent years as a result of the referendum. The projects will be completed in phases, and the debt structure and tax rate increase have been structured to need only one increase in this first year. Over $8.4 million of the FY16 budget is dedicated to these projects. As was previously stated, this year's revaluation did not bring a major increase in overall tax values. As compared with the last 5 revals, the 1.63% realized this year is the lowest growth year since 1995, other than in 2011 when Iredell actually saw a loss in value of 2.34%. However, it's important to note that the tax base has grown by 291% since 1995, from $5.7 billion to $21.2 billion. Most of the growth in value was seen in South Iredell. As a percentage, it was the only area of the county that saw positive results. Because the bulk of the tax base is in this area, even the small percentage increase equates to a net positive result countywide. Over the last year, sales tax revenue was up more than 12% over the previous year. Retail sales are trending higher and have been a balancing factor to the lower growth in revenues generated from the property tax. Although this is welcome, we generally do not rely on significant increases in the sales tax due to its unpredictability. We have budgeted for an 11% increase in FY 2016. Another significant source of income in fiscal year 15 has been revenue generated through fees and permits associated with new development. Overall, this source of income was up by 29%, and we anticipate the extension of a sewer trunk line by the town of Mooresville and the development of several significant projects in the upcoming year will drive that number higher yet again this year. I'm proposing an overall 10.51% increase over last year's budget. The largest driver of this increase is the school construction projects associated with the bond referendum. This is in addition to a sizable increase to the capital and operating budgets of the 3 school systems. Efforts to address employee compression retention and recruitment, and an overall increase in the demand for county services have all been major influences in the FY16 budget development. Iredell County's budget is dominated by contributions to the three education systems. 5% of the overall increase in the budget is due to the bonds, and remember that was 10.51% overall. When combined with the growth that is in the normal school contributions, current expense, recurring capital, and debt, proposed for the three systems, that increase goes to 6.5% of the overall growth. Overall, education will comprise 46.62% of the FY16 budget. The per pupil funding for both ISS and Mooresville Graded School District will increase under what we are recommending from $1,433 to $1,495 per pupil, growing by 4.2%. This equates to a current expense increase of $1,538,534 for ISS and $486,790 for Mooresville Graded. Overall, Iredell-Statesville will receive an increase of 5.13%, Mooresville will see a growth of 4.21%, and Mitchell will receive an increase of 3.76%. The total education budget is categorized in graph 9, which you will have a copy of when you get a copy of the budget message. In February 2015, the Board of Commissioners made the wise decision to assign $6.1 million of fund balance to build a facility to house all of the non-law enforcement public safety departments. At the same time, the Board also assigned an additional $6.7 million to the Future Jail Construction Fund, bringing the total to just over $11 million. These two actions are significant steps toward addressing the two primary county facility needs. In the FY16 budget, I propose assigning $1.8 million towards future capital facility needs to assist the Board in continuing to fund these and other future facility needs. Over the last 2 years, the county employee turnover rate has exceeded 12% per year. Increased turnover is tracked with an improved economy and the availability of jobs. It is our goal to keep turnover near 8% and retain experienced county employees. Notwithstanding the fact that employees are our most valuable resource, the average cost to replace one position is almost $10,000. With a workforce of almost 1,000 and turnover at 12%, this translates to an extremely high cost each year. In an effort to lessen the impact of a significant compression issue, I'm proposing a 2% salary scale adjustment. This adjustment is recommended after studying counties, municipalities, and private industry within the region that tend to lure our employees away. To remain competitive and to keep our most valuable resources, I recommend increasing the entire pay scale, which would help us to remain competitive and provide some relief to compressed salaries. The cost of this adjustment is $895, and that's the 2% salary scale adjustment. In addition, I propose we keep our current practice of providing merit increases to employees based on performance. This is another key factor in addressing our compression problem by rewarding high performers by moving them up on the pay scale. An increase in population, activity, and development has also caused the need for new employees. Although not all of the requested positions have been recommended to the Board, I believe there is strong justification for those that are included in the proposed budget. Key departments requesting new positions include administration, finance, social services, sheriff, building standards, e-com, and EMS. These requests are a direct result of growth and activity, and I do admit this is a high year for employee requests, new employee requests. Of particular importance is a proposed change in EMS. 2 years ago, we changed the Statesville EMS base from a 24-hour to 12-hour shift to offer better service to the public at our busiest base. The next step was to look at the Mooresville base. All of the surrounding counties, or next step was to look at the Mooresville base. However, in the last several weeks, we've found that all of the surrounding counties are going to or currently operate under 12-hour shifts. Our staff feels certain we will lose paramedics to those counties as this provides a desirable work schedule for most medics. Very popular at the Statesville base. I propose that we move to 12 hours this year in all bases except Trinity and Harmony, and in 2017 transition the remaining two bases if the call volume is there. Trinity and Harmony are our two northernmost bases and have some of the lowest call volumes. This would allow us to remain competitive with surrounding counties while providing a better service to the public. The overall impact would be the addition of 3 paramedics. 3 of the 4 voted-in fire districts, East Alexander, Mount Morn, and B&F, are requesting increases to the tax rate in their districts. East Alexander is proposing the increase to address equipment needs, Mount Morn for additional paid staff, and B&F for the purchase of a heavy rescue crash truck. There are 3 fund balance assignments I would recommend making in the upcoming fiscal year. At June 30th, 2015, we expect the unassigned fund balance to be $8.6 million, or 20.89% of the recommended budget. Through this budget, I propose that the board assign $492,000 to begin preparing for the 2019 reappraisal, $100,000 for economic development, and $959,000 for future year jail operations. As a little bit of explanation, the $492,000, we in the past have built that into the tax assessor's budget. We put it aside because of the cost of doing the revals each year. We're proposing to move that along with $100,000 for economic development projects and this $959,000, assign them in the fund balance instead of rolling them over each year. So these are costs that we would have included in the budget other than the $959,000 for future jail operations. That last recommendation is based on unspent funds in both the sheriff and jail FY 2015 budgets. This money would generally go directly into the unassigned fund balance, meaning that it goes into that large pot of money, which you all are aware. However, if a jail expansion is constructed at whatever size and scope, operational funds will be needed, and I suggest we begin building that into the budget this year. If approved, the fund balance will be adjusted as shown in the final recommendation, which I will get to. As a result of the bond referendum, there will be a 4.25 cent tax increase. The debt associated with the construction projects will be felt most over the next 5 years. In FY 2020, our debt load will reach its maximum as a percentage as a result of these projects at approximately 23% of the county's operating budget. After 2020, the rate drops significantly due to other debt retirement and expected increases in the tax base. The needs of the county do not stop when the debt load is high. Therefore, I feel it's imperative to continue to contribute to future capital projects and begin planning for increased operational costs associated with new facilities in the event they are realized. That way, it's possible to move forward with addressing needs without the need to borrow money, while also keeping our unassigned fund balance at 20%. The revenue-neutral property tax rate is the rate that is estimated to produce revenue for the next fiscal year equal to the revenue that would have been produced for that year by the current tax rate if no reappraisal had occurred. To calculate the revenue-neutral tax rate, we first determined a rate that would produce revenues equal to those produced for current fiscal year, and then increase the rate by a growth factor equal to the average annual percentage increase in the tax base since the last general reappraisal. That is a statutory requirement. Based on that analysis, the revenue-neutral tax rate, excluding debt from the bond-related projects, would be 48.75 cents per $100 in valuation. However, I've not recommended to increase the rate to that amount. Because of the tax increase due to the bonds, the fact that we have been able to balance the budget while meeting the primary goals of the board set forth at the winter retreat, and the requested tax increases in 3 of the 4 voted-in fire districts, I do not think an additional increase is warranted. Finally, the recommendation. Based on the information in the preceding message and to complete my obligation under General Statute 195-11, I recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the proposed FY 2016 budget of $184,928,590. This will increase the tax rate from 48.5 cents to 52.75 cents per $100 valuation. It is based on a tax base of $21,288,600,000 with a collection rate of 98.25%. The fund balance on June 30th, 2015 is estimated to be at $36,974,576 which is 20% of the recommended budget. And this is respectfully submitted, and I would like to thank you for all of your help so far and thank my team for their help as well.
Mr. Smith, I want to pile on and thank you and the extended county team and staff and all the directors for their hard work in assembling the budget that we will all be digging into over the next 2 days with the potential for rolling over the following week for any unresolved issues. Are there any additional comments? Questions? Thank you again, Mr. Smith. At this time, we will have a motion, I believe, concerning our closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A, subsection 4, economic development.
It was called for a public hearing on May 19th.
Okay. For which part?
For a TIG proposal for Langtree, Lake Norman.
On May 19th?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we call for a public hearing on May 19th to consider a tax increment grant. Funding proposal.
Okay, the motion has been made by Commissioner Robertson to call for a public hearing on May 19th. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Is there any further business to come before the commission? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.